Okay, so I am back live. Let me just grab the link for everyone. Okay, all right, I posted the link. Sorry, that took a little bit. And okay, and we're back. So we'll just wait for everyone else to join for a second. I'm going to pull up my screen so we can see the post on how to build a lake. All right. And once everyone else joins, I'll get started. I suppose in the meantime, I can go over some of our properties, just get that portion out of the way, and then when more people are in the chat, I'll go back to the article on how to build a lake. All right, so I'll just highlight this property we posted in Greene County. It's 0.7 acres and it's right near the Oconee River. It's also near the Oconee National Forest, which was, I was looking around the National Forest, which was how I found this property. It's in a nice little subdivision. There are a number of homes, but it's still very green. The roads are well maintained. There's public water and electricity, I believe. So it's a nice area. There are golf courses nearby, and of course, you know, fishing, boating, and water recreation off of the river. And it is zoned, what is it? It's zoned LR2, which allows for single-family homes and modular homes, but not mobile homes. It is also in Eagle View on Lake Oconee. They maintain the roads, so that's nice. And oh, you'd like over 5 acres? Yeah, in some, so I will note that in some locations we are able to, mainly out west, we do find a lot of 5-acre properties. And the East Coast, it's a little more difficult. So yeah, a lot of our Georgia and Tennessee listings, because we look for home lots, tend to be, you know, around an acre. But I will keep that in mind, that you want more acreage. Yeah, so this property is in an HOA, which is nice because it means that the roads will be maintained. Hello. And, you know, there's also, as with all of our properties, owner financing available. It's $1 down plus the $3.95 document fee. There's no prepayment penalty and no credit check. So all you have to do is click buy or hold to go to our automated checkout process. We do also offer 20% off if you pay off in the first 6 months. I will just note that you aren't able to build on or live on the property until the end of the loan term, which is why we try to help you pay off the loan as quickly as possible. There's no interest. You just don't get the cash discount price when you purchase with owner financing. And currently the cash discount price is $11,999. So that's our property in Georgia. I am going to be posting a number of other properties this week, so keep an eye out on our listing page. One other thing I don't always mention, but I should, is that we have you can subscribe to our weekly mailing list. So you'll get emails with blog updates, live stream updates, and property updates. But you can also get text notifications whenever we post a property. And you can customize that. So if there are only a few states you're interested in, you can select those states and you only get a text when we post a property in those states. That's on our website as well, if you're interested. I see a few other questions. Any upper Midwest? Not yet, but I'll keep that in mind as well, that you're looking in the Midwest. And then recommendations on buying 80 plus acres from someone when you know what they paid 2 years ago. I would recommend, yes, I mean, when you're buying a substantial acreage, you want to make sure that you're purchasing correctly. So I would have a lawyer involved. You probably want a real estate agent, although you don't necessarily need to have one. And make sure that you get all the regular tests, like perk tests, soil tests, things like that. But yes, I would recommend working with a lawyer on the purchase. Okay. All right, so I think we have a number of people back, so I'll jump back into how you can build a private lake. So again, this covers fishing ponds or just decorative ponds or wildlife ponds, lakes, ponds. I'll use it interchangeably here, which is, hi Adele, a nice addition to have on a property if you have the space, but it can be tricky. Oh, how to approach the person so you don't give yourself away. Oh, you don't want them to know, you want to send an offer, but you don't want them to know who sent it. Yeah, then you could maybe go through a lawyer or another third-party representative. I'm sure a real estate agent may be able to do that as well. You could talk to a few. If you don't mind sharing your contact information, you could just send the owner a letter yourself. But yeah, if you want to remain anonymous for now, a lawyer or real estate agent would probably be the best person to approach the current owner on your behalf. Okay. So when building a lake on a property, it is a bit of an in-depth project. Lakes or ponds can be a little bit difficult to set up, especially if you want them to be able to support life. So the first step is always to determine whether it's actually feasible. And ideally, if you know you want to build a pond or a lake, you would do your research before purchasing property, although sometimes that's not always possible. Oh, a quick question. Do we have any property in Upper Middle Tennessee? So let me go back to the map. We do have a number of Tennessee properties right now. So you can see all of them here. We do have a few in Upper Tennessee here. These are in Campbell County and Claiborne County. So you may want to check out our listing page, take a look at our Tennessee properties, see if any work for you. But I'm happy to answer any questions. You can always chat with me offline if you like. Oh, Claudia, I'm so glad you are happy with your your recent purchase. So yes, I really hope you have many years of enjoyment with the property. Okay, so is the land and soil suited for a lake? Now, this is really a question on whether the soil is right, which I'll cover in a second. But then there's also the legal question. usually related to zoning. Will you be legally allowed to build the lake or pond? And this can be, so there are zoning regulations. I don't know how often they actually address lakes and ponds, but the planning department is probably going to have something to say. So you'll want to check with them and see if you are allowed to do what you're looking to do. The other thing to keep in mind is that if there's an existing body of water on the property, so you're in the market for land and you're specifically looking for one that already has a lake or a pond, keep in mind that sometimes those waterways are protected wetlands or, public land. A lot of water, all navigable water, essentially, is the property of the United States government. So if that's the case, if it's not just a parcel of land with a private lake or pond, if it's a wetland or water that is considered a public resource, you're not going to be able to do whatever you want with that feature. In fact, it may prevent you from building elsewhere on the property. So those are things to keep in mind as well. And not to interrupt, but you might just want to excavate for materials. That way you don't need to apply for a permit when it naturally fills in. Yeah, although you often do need a permit for excavation as well. Every jurisdiction is different, but that's, and Tennessee has some of the best values. Yeah, we've been buying in Tennessee a lot. Again, as you can see from our listings, we have a number of properties there. I really like Tennessee. I think it's a great place to find property. I also just personally think it's a beautiful state. We go to the national parks there a lot. So thank you for the comment. All right. So some other things to keep in mind is that it's not necessarily cheap to construct a lake or a pond. Every project's going to be different. Of course, it's going to depend on the terrain of your property and how big you want your lake or pond to be, but you are going to have to spend at least a couple $1,000s on it. So that's something to keep in mind. It's also maybe not something that you want to do yourself. Again, depending on how large the pond or lake is going to be and whether you want it to support life or not. All right. So that's the first. So the first step will be to make sure you can legally construct the lake or pond. And the second question is going to be, what is your use case? So do you want it to have fish and wildlife, or is it just decorative? And that's going to change, the nature of the pond, how deep it needs to be, how well designed it needs to be, how extensive of a project it's going to be. So that'll be something you want to think about. Then you're actually going to evaluate your land and soil to see what is feasible. Because the right soil can make or break a project. That's true pretty much of any kind of project you undertake on a property. Soil can make or break it. That's why when purchasing property, it's always a good idea to do soil tests. So it's interesting in that in many instances you don't want clay soil, like clay is not so good for a septic system, say, but it's effective for ponds. So soil is actually good if you want to build a lake or pond, whereas sandy, rocky, or dispersive soils are not ideal. And you can understand the soil on your property by simply commissioning a soil report. This is usually performed by a geotech engineer, although, it's possible that kind of larger scale landscaping companies that are able to design and construct ponds perhaps we'll have someone in-house who could do that for you as well. But yeah, you can get a soil report that'll tell you what exactly you're working with on your property. And this will help you determine how expensive it's going to be. Let's see. And let me see, another comment. Hauling and clay. If your land will not hold water, it's not cheap. You really need to know what, yep. Thank you. That's very important point. This is why soil is so important. Some soils hold water more than others. Again, like rocky, sandy soil that water is going to drain down. Really great for septic systems, not so great for ponds. If the soil does not like to hold water, it's going to be very expensive to build a lake or pond. So, and then there are some additional aspects that are going to impact how expensive and how feasible it'll be to build a pond or a lake. So rainfall, of course, and watershed. The watershed is the area of land that feeds all the water running around it. So it's basically, if you have a natural pond, you're going to have a watershed, which is an area that's not wet, but in which all the water drains down to the naturally occurring pond or lake. Every time it rains, the land essentially filters the water down to that lake or pond. That's why it exists. So a way to save money is to build in a natural water focal point where you have a watershed around your lake or pond that's going to naturally feed it with water. And you'll want to determine where the water flows on your property and where a good point is. And it's also important to understand how large that watershed is, and have a rough idea of how much water will be coming in, because it'll help you size the lake or pond, right? If you make a lake that's too large for the watershed around the area, there's not going to be enough water to fill it, and you're going to have to cover the gap. If it's too small, then you may have issues with flooding. So those are things to keep in mind. Of course, you can always manually adjust the water levels as you like, but it's going to be more work for you if you're working against the watershed than if you're working with it. And a professional can really help you figure this out. That's why it's often a good idea to work with like a landscaping consultant or a landscaping firm, a geotech engineer, someone who has a lot of experience in designing lakes and ponds, because they can accurately map out the watershed on your property and give you pointers on where the lake or pond should go and how large it should be. The other thing, of course, is existing landscaping. Trees can complicate the process of building a lake. Trees can be problematic because they can wick water away from the lake. They can also damage man-made lakes or structures. Another comment, on one of my properties, a berm wall blew out and it's no longer a lake. Thankfully, it happened slowly, so I didn't get sued. Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but yeah, that's designing it properly is really important, because if the lake or pond bursts, you will have problems on your property, but you may, if it creates a large enough flood, you could get in real trouble with your neighbors. And so trees kind of relate to this because the roots can damage the man-made structures. So that's why it's best not to have trees around your dam walls to help protect them, because as those roots grow, if they start to grow into the dam wall, they can, damage it slowly over time. And eventually that can create a problem. And then, of course, you want to think about the depth of the pond. This depends in part on the watershed. It also depends on your use case. So if you want it for swimming or fishing, then you'll likely need a deeper reservoir than a pond that's just for aesthetics, right? And then there's the legalities as well. So you'll want to check with the county on all of their regulations, what permits are required. Make sure that you're not touching any kind of protected water source or affecting any kind of protected water source with your project. You'll also want to think about how the lake or pond may impact your insurance policy, your homeowner's insurance or your land liability insurance. It could have an impact on that. So, go through the legalities as well. All right. And as I mentioned, it's usually a good idea to have a professional help you design your pond. A geologist is a great person, or a geotech engineer. You can reach out to the National Resources Conservation Service, NRSC, their branch of USDA, so they'll have local offices. See if they can connect you to a few individuals in your community who have experience building the kind of lake or pond that you're interested in constructing. And they can help you do the exploratory pits to understand what kind of soil is on your property. They'll also, if it's a geotech engineer, they can also help you design the project. So some people are very much into the do-it-yourself. I am sure there are a ton of resources online on how to build your own pond. But it can be, as I've gone over, it can be an extensive process, and building one correctly would really benefit from having a professional because, again, if you don't get the size and depth right, and if it's not properly designed and constructed, you could create major issues for yourself, in particular with flooding later on. And that will not only impact you, especially if you're living on the property, but it may cause, like I said before, issues with your neighbors, and that could get you in legal trouble. So just something to think about. The other thing is that a professional is going to help you address drainage in this way to help minimize flooding or potential flooding, because every pond will have the potential to flood, especially when you have a major rain event. So they will, a good engineer is going to help you design an overflow drainage area to help mitigate the potential flooding should something fail, or should you have an extreme weather event that'll cause flooding from the pond. And, this is a good question. How about turning a pond or lake back into normal land? Quite often something gets designated as a wetland or body of water. It remains that way even though it isn't anymore. If the question is specifically about areas that have truly been designated as federal wetlands or state protected wetlands, which are no longer wet, for that process, my understanding would be you go through if it's a federally designated wetlands, you'd have to go through the Army Corps of Engineers, but you could have a wetland delineation done. Essentially, a biologist or someone with knowledge of wetland ecology will come out and they'll check and make sure that the property is indeed a wetland. And if they don't find that the property supports a wetland ecology anymore, then you can use that finding from their delineation to try and petition to have it removed. So it's a little bit of a process, but you would start with the Army Corps of Engineers. If it's a state designated wetland, then you'll have to check with the relevant state agency to see what their process is, but it's probably fairly similar. I think in most instances, the first thing to do would be to have a delineation done. But it's also true that a property may be designated as a wetland and it's no longer like a lake or a pond, something that's permanently wet, but it's still considered a wetland because the soil retains a fair amount of water and can support wetland ecology, right? So that can confuse property owners a lot. You may buy a property and say, well, it's not wet. I don't see that much standing water on there, but it still is considered a wetland because of the nature of the soil and the kind of ecosystem it can support. Right. Okay, and then just some final things to keep in mind. You'll want to introduce plants and wildlife cautiously because, again, plants are really important for the health of a lake or pond, but they can also damage the man-made structures that keep the water in place. So you'll want to be careful about where you plant various plants and which kinds of plants you use. And again, a professional can help you figure out what the appropriate landscaping is. And when it comes to introducing fish, that's tricky. It's also tricky because you need to make sure that the water will support them. So it's going to have the right pH. It's going to have enough oxygen in it. It's going to have sufficient nutrients and a food source for them. So you'll need to make sure that you'll have to test the water, make sure that it has all the appropriate nutrients and chemical components to support fish. And then you may also need to install things like an aerator to get dissolved oxygen in. You may also have to provide food, and you may need to do things about temperature, make sure the lake or pond is the right temperature. You'll also probably need to protect the fish from the local wildlife. So things to keep in mind. But that's a really high-level overview of how to build a lake or pond. There is, of course, a lot more to it, but you know, in a half an hour live stream, that gives you a good starting point, I think, to think about the project if you're interested in doing it. Certainly, a lake or a pond is a really nice addition to a parcel of vacant land if you have the space. You know, who doesn't like to have some water in their backyard? Even if you just want it for decoration, so you can sit out on your lawn chair with your lemonade and watch the ducks come and land on the pond's water. Right. So I think, unless there are any questions, that more or less covers it. I already went over our latest property. Like I said, I'm going to be posting more properties this week. I have a number in my pipeline, so check it out if you're in the market. And you can also, of course, subscribe to text alerts if you have a particular state that you're interested in. And now that brings us to why you're all here, I'm sure, the vacation giveaway. Okay, so I know many of you are familiar with how this works, but I'll just go over the terms really quickly because, you know, I want to make sure everyone understands. What we give away is a voucher that's valid for 3, in some locations, 4-night stay in one of several hotels. There are over 50 locations. A lot of them are in the US, but there are global locations as well. The hotel stay is complimentary, but you do need to pay the regular taxes. Most hotel rooms are for 1 or 2 people, but there will be a few locations that might accept up to 2 children as well. The way it works is if you win, I'll send me an email, and I'll send you the full, a little PDF that gives you a link to the full terms as well as the full list of locations. And you can let me know which location you would like. I'll then send you the voucher. You have 7 days to redeem the voucher. When you redeem it, you don't have to select the exact hotel and you don't have to select your dates, but you do need to pay the taxes. You then have 18 months to pick your dates and your hotel. I will note that most holidays will not be available, and there is, I think, like a $50 fee for weekend bookings. So those are some things to keep in mind. The other important note is that you are only allowed to redeem 1 voucher every year, so every 12 months. So if you've either bought a property from us or won, because we offer a voucher when you buy a property as well, or you've won one of these vouchers before, you have 2 options. You can either gift it, Christmas is coming up, to a friend or family member, or we can give you a $200 hotel savings card too. So you have a few options. And I think those are the main terms. The way this works is anyone who wants to participate, just say yes in the chat, and everyone gets a number based on when they said yes. So the first person's 1, second is 2, so on and so on. And I'll have Google randomly select a number. So we'll wait about a minute so everyone can chime in if they want to participate. I will say I hope you all had a great week. And if you ever have any topics you would like me to cover on this live stream, just let me know. You can send me an email, a text, leave a comment on the YouTube channel or the Instagram channel. and I will cover that topic in an upcoming live stream. I also will probably have some really interesting interviews coming up soon related to homesteading and farming. So keep an eye out for those. I have some guests I'm really excited about, and I think they'll have a lot of great wisdom to share with us all about farming and homesteading and land ownership. Okay. And, you know, of course, I will be here same time, same place next week. And I think that was enough time for everyone to say yes. So it looks like we have one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 participants. 11 participants. 11. All right. So I am going to go to our random number. So one more person. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right. 12. How to move a ditch. That is a good topic. I will look into that. Okay. So I'm going to count down from 10, and then I'm going to have Google select a random number. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I don't think I double counted. Oh, yes, I see. That was twice. So it's 11. Sorry. Thank you for pointing that out. 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. 11, and the winner is number 6. So that is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. M. West. Congratulations. You can email me at, let me put my email in the chat here. And as for everyone else, thank you so much for joining me. I know 6 p.m. Eastern is a key time to be with family. If you're in the West Coast, even 3 p.m. On a Sunday is an important time of day. So I appreciate you all being here. And if you show up, I do this every week. And so if you keep showing up, you will likely win a voucher. And I hope to see you all here, same time, same place, next Sunday. Have a wonderful week.